Welcome to another week, an edition of the Nightly News. Ted, we are literally 1 week away from these very critical midterm elections. All last week, we talked about issues that our listeners need to be concerned about. We're going to talk about some races later in the week because, fingers crossed, you and I have heard that Donald Trump Jr. is going to do a special edition of the Nightly News later this week with us. But I want to jump right in. I'm sure you've seen the news. I don't really want you to stand up because I assume you're wearing nothing but your underpants. And I see a hammer on the shelf there behind you. Unbelievable story coming out of California. We're talking about Paul Pelosi, the husband of Nancy Pelosi. And you know what, Ted, I'll just say this up front. We all have family members that deal with addictions or have problems. If Mr. Pelosi is one of those, my heart goes out to their family. We know he has some alcohol issues. Just a few short weeks ago, he was involved in a car crash. He was drunk. I think there was somebody in the vehicle with him, but we haven't heard much about that. Okay. Let's get to the story at hand, Ted. I read every story. I listened to the 911 call. It says Mr. Pelosi doesn't know his attacker, but his name is David, and he's a friend. What's your take on this Paul Pelosi situation?
You know, we can go into the toxic and very offensive, embarrassing, criminal minutia of what the Pelosi family represents. And we can talk about this incident, and we should, but we should find out exactly what did happen. Here's the bottom line. Here's the battle cry of truth, logic, common sense, self-evident truth, glaringly obvious self-evident truth about the Pelosi family, particularly Paul and Nancy, and his lifestyle in San Francisco and certain neighborhoods in San Francisco, reported from eyewitness friends who live out there, if for nothing else, the seafood. The family, Paul and Nancy, just like the Democrat Party, Keith, they're virtually untrustworthy. Everything they do is toxic. I believe criminal. I believe immoral. I believe nasty. I believe contrary to the foundational values of this country. I think we all know what Paul Pelosi is. I think we all know what Paul Pelosi does. I'm not going to allege anything here. But when the gory details come out, and of course they probably won't, because just like the so-called January 6th investigation, when the bank gets robbed and they investigate the bank robbery, nobody keeps the security camera footage out of the investigation. The Democrats and our toxic, criminal, horrific, treasonous Uncle Sam current gang, they are intentionally leaving out all the evidence, the thousands of hours of security camera footage from January 6th, and they're doing the same thing whenever they can cover a Paul or a Nancy Pelosi or an Adam Schiff or any number of the Democrats that I believe at this point in time. My name is Ted Nugent, and I study the evidence. I talk to boots on the ground and eyewitnesses, people in that community. Our government hates good people. Our government hates the Constitution. Our current government, and only the guilty need to feel guilty, which would be about 97.8% of them out there, including the so-called Republicans. We don't trust Uncle Sam anymore. That's the heartbreak. And this is not just another horrific manifestation of cultural abandonment that the Pelosi's are the poster child for. Pay attention to Paul Pelosi's lifestyle and pay attention to the words and the look on the face of Nancy Pelosi as she rips up the State of the Union address on television. That's all we really need to know. Now, what do? Put the flames out of the burning American building. Vote. Vote conservative like you've never voted before, because the status quo today is the enemy of freedom, the enemy of America, and I am convinced, heartbreakingly, the enemy of mankind.
Well, Ted, very well spoken. I hope our listeners and our viewers go to huntthevote.org, huntthevote.org. It's critical that you pledge to vote. make a plan to vote, and then go vote. There's early voting in almost every jurisdiction now, and certainly come election day, if you haven't early voted, get out and make your voice heard. Huntthevote.org. Please make sure you vote. It's critical. Come back tomorrow because, Ted, I want to get your take on Elon Musk. Lots going on in the social media world, especially Twitter. And we'll discuss that tomorrow night right here on the Nightly Nooch.